What happens when you come home from war, but you can't come back to who you were? For Rob Sarver, years as a Navy SEAL meant combat, loss, and carrying home PTSD and survivor's guilt that didn't end when the mission did. For Alex Gendzier, losing his wife and witnessing the cost carried by those who serve became a call he couldn't turn away from. But what they both came face to face with was this: coming home isn't about returning to your old life. It's about realizing that life is gone. What they discovered in that space became warrior to civilian and a path through grief, identity, and purpose that most people never see. Now, before we begin, if you're here because you're seeking truth, understanding, and a deeper relationship with your own life, take a moment to subscribe and share this with someone who may be feeling unsettled inside. And if anxiety has been part of your experience, there's a free ebook in the description to support you. Every conversation here is meant to offer perspective, support, awareness, and remind you you're not alone. Welcome, Alex and Rob. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some things in common, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to ask this question a little differently than I usually do. It's separate, so the audience can get a feel for your stories individually. So, can you, Alex, share what your story is by going a little deeper into what you've lived through and how that experience shaped the work or perspective you bring into the world today?
Hmm. A small question you're asking.
Just a little one.
Well, I think the most obvious place to start, but is not the most important for me, was how to carry on and raise my sons after my late wife passed away. And so that began a journey, and it was transformative. I had to rise to that occasion because there were two souls in the balance. And fast forward, Rob and I met at work, and for a bunch of reasons, had conversations. Rob's version of this is more articulate than mine, and discovered a commonality that kind of like a great ironic surprise. If you had met us separately, you thought these guys are just very different, both incredible, great guys, handsome, the whole shebang, but they're not going to be,
All of it. All of it.
colleagues and creating something that is unique.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what we discovered pretty quickly was we came from different places in life, but shared some common experiences in dealing with and growing from loss.
Mhm.
And that began a journey. And the journey really had a few key punctuation points, including coming to a conclusion that our greatest wounds, our greatest losses can serve and become our greatest purposes.
Absolutely.
And so if you don't do that, then are you really honoring where you've come from and doing what you're meant to do on this earth? I'll be real short. We attended an opening of a trauma treatment center for veterans. And the keynote speaker was one of the guys who had served during the Vietnam War and was at the Hanoi Hilton with Senator McCain. And his opening lines were, never lose the opportunity to learn from and grow on suffering. There's a lot of talk of suffering and great difficult emotions so far, but really this is an extraordinary journey, a journey of
Yeah.
growth and finding, and the lens through which we have looked at this in our book is the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell made popular. That's probably more than enough of an intro.
No, I could go on forever with stuff like this, but I won't. Rob, please connect us with your story, going a little deeper as well into what you lived through and how that experience shaped the work or perspective you bring into the world.
Sure. Well, thank you for having us, and thank you for your
Yeah.
I guess my story I think would probably go back to coming out of SEAL training and right away being forward deployed within 4 days of finishing training back to Iraq. That was already my second trip back to Iraq. I was there in 2006, kind of during the height of, we call it now the Civil War. At the time, it was EJK, extrajudicial killings, Sunni Shia violence. I was thrust into that very young in my career, and it somewhat never stopped. So through my 9 years of service, 7 deployments, 5 of them were to the Middle East, seeing sustained combat in both Iraq, Afghanistan. So with every tour, brought the new experiences. Coming closer to coming closer to death on some ops, and but unfortunately, where I say like I scaved, and I'll say my guys came back. My sister platoons and the SEAL teams and other friends that I knew, far less fortunate. I think with every
Mhm.
deployment, we lost guys. On my last deployment, we lost 5, 4 assigned to SEAL Team 3, and then one died the day before I got to my site, who was an EOD guy that was assigned to the West Coast that we all knew. So
Can I stop you there real quick? Because I will do this on stuff, especially with people who use acronyms. When you use EOD, can you explain what EOD is for our listeners? Because I'm pretty sure they won't.
explosive ordnance disposal. They're
Okay.
assigned to the SEAL team. Uh, the main EOD specialist that was at my site in Afghanistan died the day before we got there. So as soon as we landed in country, within hours we were doing a ramp ceremony, or the hero flight that we do for fallen
Hmm.
soldiers. I did that within hours of arriving on my last deployment, and then it
Um.
didn't seem to
Wow.
stop at all on
That's
that last deployment.
Yeah. It's interesting listening to you because I had a friend of mine come on whose ex-husband was a Green Beret, and the stories that she told based off of her experiences with him, it's like that close-knit family piece of it, and you guys are like it's a whole different world compared to, like, I guess, to say the regular military service. The things that I was never a combat veteran, so I didn't understand that, but I was part of a group called Fort Freedom, that helped me recover, and I talked to people, veterans who have been in Afghanistan and Iraq and those places, and some of the stories I hear from them, it's like what people don't understand is how it stays in your nervous system, how it sticks. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later based off of a mutual friend of ours, but it's not just PTSD. It goes beyond that. And I just want people to sit with that for a minute while we continue the conversation. But it's just important to know how that experience sticks with the body, right? And for you to have seen all that and experienced it at the get go, that's like a shock to the system. So it's totally understandable, right? Um, and then Alex, like, wait, let me ask you this question, Rob. Alex said that you would do better in explaining how the two of you met at work. I want to get that one out of the way first before I put this other thing
Yeah.
out there.
So, coming out of the military from those experiences, it was very hard. I knew, like, well, I can go work at Goldman Sachs. I can do this, and I did. But going from that world to sitting in front of 2 computer screens, I mean, you talk about trying to balance that in your mind and
Mm,
your psyche, but then you start questioning yourself, like, what did I just do?
mhm,
Loss of identity, loss of purpose. But so I went back and got advanced education. Then I kind of bounced a little bit to refining purpose and stuff. Um, in the midst of all that, went through my own struggles, my own trauma. Actually went through 2 different professional programs, and I found a Vietnam era psychologist who was very helpful. He's been 40 years with combat vets. I say all that as a precursor that as when I met Alex and I started helping Alex's son, and Alex asked me, he's like, Rob, could we write some of like a memo to leave my son when he gets out of the military? Because I think he's going to do 20 years. I said, Alex, of course, like you're
mhm.
helping me understand the private debt markets and private equity. I'm more than happy to write that. And then as Alex is asking me more and more questions on how I came back to assimilate, into the normal environment, you know, I what is normal at that point when you downregulate enough and decompress. But um, Alex hit me right at the point to where I was like, okay, I'm okay, ready to talk about these things. And I started conversing with Alex some of the stuff and sharing, and he's like, Rob, we should really share what's inside your head. Alex, that'd be just another SEAL book. I don't want to do that. And I think he went back for about a month and thought about that. And he came back saying, Rob, I really think there's something here. I was like, okay, I'll explore this on two conditions. With the co-author, so dilute the SEAL brand a little bit, so it's not just another SEAL book out there. And two was we have to write this as a wide net, past special operations, past the military, to anybody who's experienced trauma could pick this up and find a framework to work through this. And that's kind of the universal themes behind in the microcosm of just Alex and Rob, like, okay, civilian, military, but you look at these, you look at the trauma, you look at all these things in the background, it's that universal theme. So
Yeah.
that's what came about. And then we found ourselves sitting in front of General McChrystal, who really loved what we had to say and really he said, yeah, guys, you're on to something here with taking Greek mythology and all these latest practices of what we've seen for the last 20 years of asymmetric warfare and tying it into the hero's journey.
Mhm.
And he really liked that concept and that framework. And that's what we ran with for the next 4 years.
Nice. Well, that's so powerful because I'm like jumping at the bit because of the conversation I had with Dr. Tick, who you have worked with,
Yes.
and I'm going to jump into that space right now anyway, because one of the things I wanted to say about what you said, Alex, something that popped in was like, you both had different experiences, basically, different places in your life, different things that happen, and how they all blend in together. They blend together because we're human and because our feelings and emotions are the same. The story could be completely different or somewhat similar or whatever, but the feelings are the same. So that's where the empathy comes in. That's where we connect with people. And I think that's such a powerful thing. And some of the stuff that I learned from Dr. Tick, and I read his book, I can't remember which one, the one where he talks about the Vietnam vet specifically, and the experience that he had with him. But I know he influenced you guys, and his work around warriors from ancient civilization like Greek and the other pieces that he brought into it, and also indigenous people, and how we as a society at this time don't treat warriors as we should when they return home, mainly because we don't know how. We think that, you know, it's just a thing. They come home, it's like, welcome back. No, welcome back to what? And that's some of the stuff I'd like to get a little deeper about what you went into the book with. But, and then the other piece of what he does is like, rather for me, what I've learned from him and just in general is rather than diagnosing and labeling veterans with PTSD, he got to the truth of what it really is as a soul wound. And he called it soldier's heart. And Rob, and of course, Alex, I'd love for you to jump in for what you know here, but Rob, if you could go in a little bit deeper, you're the first client I've spoken to of Dr. Tick. So, it's like, what was that experience like? Like, I'm a veteran. I went through my own stuff in my own way and different things that I experienced, but not in the same way. I'd love to hear your experience on that because I think that that's a powerful thing. I was like drawn into his book so much because of my own experience. So please share that.
You want me to start? You want Alex to comment on Tick real quick, and then I can.
Yeah, however you guys want to do it. It's
Alex, did you
either
want?
way is fine.
You've had a lot of conversations with Tick, even past me. So if you want to comment, and then I can talk about Soldier's Heart.
Yeah, that.
So we encountered his first books and found them profound
Mhm,
because he recognized at the soul level what's going on here.
mhm,
And what is it when a soul gets hurt because of life and life circumstances. And how does a soul heal? And in the context of veterans, I mean, which Rob said has been our focus, but the application is everyone. Everyone has at some point suffering in their lives, and they have a choice about how to live it, how to face it, whether they're going to be devoted to their own healing or not. And then through that, what do they do with that in their lives? What role does their own journey play in lifting up those around them? And and Dr. Tick is pretty profound about that. And as you said, bringing back, making available ancient Greek and Roman and Native American warrior society traditions. But what's involved in coming back from these difficult circumstances and having the time to purify yourself, which in all three of these civilizations was a key component. How do you prepare yourself to come back to so-called civilization, what you've been fighting for, and about which it is easy to be dislocated from?
Mm.
And how to think of that as a journey. And he certainly buys into the concept of the hero's journey, which we can unpack in a moment. Him bringing back the ways that we are leaving money on the table, so to speak, about how to welcome back warriors is significant. And he has several very practical sets of details about it and a profoundly spiritual component.
Mm-hmm.
How do we not take advantage of the wisdom of those that have gone to do something that allows us to be here? They have defended us. They have sacrificed. They bear scars. Many of them don't come home. It's not just how do we learn from that? How do we honor that? That deserves to be honored. And when you think about it and talk about these things, suddenly you have elders in our midst, the way Senator McCain was in the Senate, who pressed everyone around him to say, if we're sending young men and women off to war, let's be sure we know what we're doing. And if you don't, I'll tell you about it. And his voice was one of the clearest about that in our history. That's just a snapshot. Tick is a profound translator of ancient traditions about these things. And so these are a few of the ways that I think he influenced us deeply and became a friend and a supporter.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
I guess if as I would look at a warrior's heart, and I'll say this: you don't have to be special operations to be on this warrior path. Anybody who's served in uniform, we met the doctrine of three things that's set out by Department of Defense, right? And one of those was we all qualified on a weapon, therefore we were trained to kill. So we all meet some definition of a warrior, and the warrior's heart or the soldier's heart for me is I kind of break it down from Tick's stuff as, we had this call to adventure, or this path, this pursuit of becoming a warrior. And the more and more the depth or the higher the tier you went to in our military and special operations or whatever it was, like you got more and more on the fringes out there of experiencing, every human behavior you can, starvation, hypothermia, war, loss, tragedy, you saw it all. Horrific things in warfare. You see all these. And you go out to that. So the more repetitions you have this, the more deployments you have, the further you've pushed out on that fringe, the harder it will be to come back. And for the soldier's heart, on the backside of that, coming back, I think it's really important to find truth in yourself. And there's only the real way the heart or the soul is going to heal is if you have the truth with yourself. Now, what you just said a moment ago, we never really fully get back to that groove or on that thing. That is true. That's why after finding truth with self, we have to understand tremendous balance in our life. And I think the last thing is at some point we have to have peace. with ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that because like what I was feeling when I read all of that, especially the most important piece of that where we are not connecting in a good way with our veterans, our warriors, is that we don't really like we'll say thank you first for your service, but that really doesn't cover anything. When he talked about the words welcome home, that like because that in the indigenous cultures the the Greeks and mythology, all these things that were going on there, it was more like society was with the warrior. They knew what they were doing, and there was like this container that they created in these societies to welcome these people home. And even I don't know if it was his book or somewhere else I read about this Native American woman who was in our military and went back to Alaska or something like that. And she went, I mean, she was out of commission intentionally. They created that space for her for 3 months so she could find herself again. Like you totally lose yourself. That's the way I see it. And the welcoming home piece gives that person a feeling of knowing that somebody actually is paying attention and it isn't just a thing or something to say or whatever. And what do you think when I say that? What's your thoughts on that? Either one of you.
I mean, I completely agree. I made the mistake and I jumped straight from what I was doing into a corporate position. And I never created space. I never created time to heal, none of that. And the problem was, even when I left, I was still having friends die in combat. So I'm trying to get on with my life and work corporate, buy a house, start a family, all that. And I still have friends out there doing the mission, getting killed. And I'm living it, but in a different world. So I had no way to, well, one decompress, but even I didn't have anybody to really talk to because I didn't learn about true communication until after I had went and got help. I just continued to compartmentalize.
Sure. Well, and then there's another piece to that too, which I've discovered in my conversations with combat vets is that most people don't want to hear what you have to say because it's too scary to them. And I'm gonna be blunt about it. It's just like the spin
Yeah.
out that like you come back and you've got the spin out, all these things are going on. You've got you're in a civilian job, you just got done with that. You've got your buddies out there still, and you don't know from 1 minute to the next what's happening with them. And how do you can't it's difficult to rectify that.
No, I actually have a funny story about that. I got out and for some reason I had two guys, they're into tour awards, combat awards, were being slow rolled. They weren't being approved. So I'm in
Mhm.
and here I am as a civilian having to rewrite sections of their awards to justify the level of what they got. And it didn't even dawn to me that as those emails are coming on and off the Goldman Sachs server, compliance is reading those because a social security number was picked up in there. And I
Right.
and compliance set me down and they were like, Rob, you can't do this. We don't want to write you up. This is what happened. So like, look, we're going to let this go. Please do not put that stuff on the server. And then finally the conversation turned to like, did you guys really do all that stuff? And I was like, yes, sorry, you were not supposed to read that, but my bad. But yeah, that's a good case in point right there that they don't believe it.
How can they? They've never experienced it.
These
Yeah.
are these are very rich topics.
Mhm.
The society that has some understanding, appreciation is a superficial word in this context, for what it is, those that have gone off to defend us and to serve and sacrifice in doing that, that's irreplaceable. This, the, the literature, the plays from ancient Greece reflect that profoundly. The Native American warrior societies reflect that profoundly. The
Yeah.
most common example in our recent history is the Greatest Generation, where when soldiers came back after the end of World War II, there was a deep understanding, but actually it's an irony. because there was some understanding, but the idea of really having empathy and walking in the shoes of what soldiers did and the emotional, psychological toll was in its infancy. So it's not a golden era. And there are countless stories. We interviewed folks from many conflicts that live this of not having an outlet, not speaking about it. And there's a remarkable moving story of a World War II veteran where his wife and children and grandchildren asked him to talk about it, and he couldn't. And there was a box in the attic of his things. When he was 80, he started meditating. Somehow or other, he then started speaking, and it changed his life. So the internal emotional and psychological aspects of this journey are things where we still have a heck of a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that there's,
100%.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I do grief work with people. That's one of my things how I work with people. And what I say to people in grief, when you were talking about this just now, Alex, was like it swings over. It's like we're doing the same thing with people who are grieving, which is basically the same thing as a warrior coming home, right? Um, we're in a situation where a friend or family member, somebody is grieving something, and we tell them, "Oh, you don't cry. It's okay. Just don't do that because it hits us. It's a
Well,
direct
because we're
hit."
uncomfortable with it.
Exactly. Exactly. So we say don't cry, but that's the worst thing you can do for somebody so they can heal. And you don't have to say anything. Your willingness, and I'm saying this to the audience mostly because you both understand this, I feel, our willingness to just sit there and hold the space for the person who is, whether it's a veteran telling us their story, no matter what that story sounds like, or if it's somebody grieving because of the loss of somebody, whether it's a death or some other kind of loss in their life, it's their soul being revealed. It's giving them an opportunity to get this out of their system and for us as a support, holding that space for them is huge. Like, this isn't a brag, this is just an experience of something, one of the veterans that I was speaking with, and him going into detail about everything, and he's just tearing up and going through this whole thing, and we talked for 40 minutes. He told me his story. And I just sat there and I didn't say anything. I just sat there and held his space. And it wasn't easy for me to hear because I'm an empath and I'm highly sensitive. And I take in this stuff and I could feel their pain, right? And I'm just sitting there holding the space with him. I held it with him. And he was like, it was the most profound experience that I ever had. And for him thanking me just for sitting there listening to him was like, you don't need to do anything else. Just hold the space. And people don't get that. And that's frustrating for me because it's like, it's just simple. I don't know. Maybe for me it's simple,
It,
but yeah.
I'll jump in and then pass it to Rob. There's two profound aspects of what you're talking about. And the first, which I experience now and I'm tested on all the time now, is one of the biggest gifts we can give each other is to be present, to be attuned to them when they need it. It's simple to say and it's hard to do sometimes.
Mhm.
And it is one way that we're meant to relate to each other. We're given a chance to be better and bigger about that. The second thing that you talked about, it was inherent in what you talked about, was this very simple, ancient, modern principle, part of our society, that bearing witness, allowing
Mhm.
testimony to be spoken, hearing it, and then sharing your own. It's real simple, and it can happen. At the coffee shop where I spend half my time upstate New York at 7 a.m. when there's a bunch of Korean um, Marines from the Korean War that sit with each other,
Mm.
or it can happen on a Saturday beer once a week, whatever. But listening to each other and exchanging stories is a profound aspect of metabolizing these things. And that is a
Mhm.
key component of healing.
And this, for this particular group of people, is why I want this to get out there, because if people don't, and I confront people all the time, just the general population. I'm like, they've said it to me. The piece about thank you for your service. I'm like, hold on a second. Let's talk about that for a minute. So it's being able to also hold space for people who don't really understand what to say, because I've talked to people and they're like, I don't know what else to say to them. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to do this. So that's what I say. So it's like even that bearing witness to that piece of it. And also too, if a veteran can, or someone who's returned who's not yet of actual gotten out of the military veteran type, they if they were at a point where they could actually voice what it is they need, what would you can you help explain what that would look like? Maybe Rob, because like are you even in a place where you can ask for that help? Or I probably know the answer to this already, but
Well,
or
yeah,
is it like, I don't even want to do it. I don't even want to try,
no, that
you
that
know?
was that was going to be my comment. It's tremendous for people to step up and give the time and space to give you the platform to share, but a lot of folks, that's why I said, like, when you look at the soldier's heart, or the soul, they need to go find truth first before they can share those things.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of them are not going to be able to do it themselves, and they have to. And this is where Alex and I, like, there's some great Brene Brown books out there. And she walks about vulnerability and walking in through, this arena, to face these things and be vulnerable. They're going to have to get to a point of wanting to be vulnerable, and then the truth will come. But my challenge back to the veteran is, you know, if you follow Joseph Campbell's A Hero's Journey, and you went from this known universe to this unknown universe of joining the military, and you went through all these trials, these, moral injury and combat and death. Like, we had the courage to cross the threshold once. Why can't we cross the threshold again and accept the elixir of the gods, this new version of self or knowing of power? Why can't we accept that? And I think on the other side of that is, it's the kind of the secondary gift. It's finding the truth of self. They have to do that first before they're going to have that, be able to take advantage of time and space to share.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, wow. So let me ask you this question on both of you. Um, Awakening. We'll talk about awakening, because this is where we're kind of leading into getting these soldiers, the veterans, out of the space. Maybe there's even, tell me if I'm wrong here too, but maybe there's even a feeling of not feeling supported by anybody, and maybe that kind of adds to it. But when you get into the space where you're ready, and awakening can come from the beginning to heal the trauma. You guys talk about it making like a house of cards fall, and it can also provide a roadmap for a new lease on life. And you're talking about like the new lease on life is not just the healing, but it's a new purpose. It's new levels of service and fulfillment and passion and redemption. And it can even go as far as joy, happiness, and love. What can you share about that initial space of working through it themselves and opening up and awakening into that piece of it? Is that possible?
I think it is. It's definitely possible. It's The problem is when veterans come out, there's over 40,000 VSOs there, and everybody's willing to reach their hand out. Then the veteran just might have too much pride or be too damaged, or they just feel like they have to carry this rucksack because that's their burden. But they need to understand that, you know everybody wants to label PTSD. Like, it's a Venn diagram of three things. It's survivor's guilt, PTSD, and depression. And if you've been downrange, and you've been exposed to some of these things, and it doesn't even have to be combat. It could be a moral injury in the back in garrison. You're gonna experience somewhere on this spectrum, these three things in this Venn diagram. And I think it's going and unpacking that and having the mentorship to unpack these things, that you're going to be able to get to where the place that you're talking about. But you have to be willing to take these steps, and that's the problem. Is DOD and the VA, yes, they have good systems, but there's so many people now getting out, and there's 22 million veterans. Then you look at all the combat veterans, and you still look at what the low intensity conflicts that we're doing in today. Like, it's the long gray line of veterans. It's just going to keep continuing. Most veterans don't even know where to start because they've been taught their whole career that they are to just suck it up, keep marching.
Drive on.
Right. They're not willing to help.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they keep going down this spiral, right? And then it's amplified by, the comorbidities of drug and alcohol, and it just keeps going and going. And unfortunately, we get down to like the suicide rate. That's the unfortunate part, is getting to people fast enough and showing them the correct path with the correct resources. I don't think we have that figured out yet.
That makes sense. Alex, you want to add something to that?
I think Rob nailed it. What's always interesting is that we both focus on the same things and sometimes speak in different ways, but it's the same topic. I think that if you're talking about awakening, I think that this is a mystery. This is a mystery of life. And yet, if one doesn't set the intention of seeking wholeness and healing, if you don't set the intention and take active steps to adapt, to live in a healthy way, to seek excellence in how you perform in the world, then it's much harder to come by. But once you enter that stream, the gods will delight in you.
They will delight and meet you where you're at.
That's like a 21st century psycho addition to that.
Right.
But it's not up to you. And it's up to higher forces, I believe. That's the mystery of it. But we all have a responsibility towards ourselves in the way Rob's talking about. And part of the equation is with the veteran and the military spouse, 100% in terms of that truth. But this is a truth for all of us. This is a truth for all of us in our most important relationships. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and also too, I mean, you brought up the military spouse, and here we're going to say that I've been a spouse as well. But the thing with that too, and my friend who I interviewed, the family, it's not just the service member that goes through this, because just looking at it from an energetic perspective, anyone in their vicinity is going through it. And they call it secondary PTSD. And it's not something that's easy to deal with when you don't, first of all, the service member doesn't speak or talk about it because they can't yet. And you're thinking there's something else wrong and you don't understand their experience, then you've got this whole mix up happening and adding into that. So it's like the thing that you were describing about the veterans going to the VA, and then it's not really set up for as big as it's getting. Well, it's even bigger than we think it is because you're also including family.
There's a great segment on 60 Minutes about secondary PTSD. I think it's affecting something like 3 million children, if I remember the stats. It's a lot.
It is. It's a lot, and it's something that we need to pay attention to, but I don't think that that's what we're doing. Like it's almost like we have to come up with our own way, like Dr. Tick is doing, or you guys are doing, like coming up with our own way from our own knowledge and our own experience on how to rework these things to help these soldiers and these veterans get past this if they're ready. You can't expect that to happen and that goes on in civilian life too. People I've worked with, it's like I'm learning more and more. If this person's not ready to do it, you can't change their mind. There's nothing you can do. Maybe hold space for them to let them know that they are supported, like we talked about a little while ago, but it's not a simple thing, especially with something that's haunting, that's a haunting of the mind and the body and the spirit as much as war experience is.
I agree. And I think that was mine and Alex's goal, was to write these frameworks from an ancient perspective and to give them these frameworks get it to them as far left of them getting out of the military to where all the support structure is gone. So at
Mhm.
least carry some frame, front focus or back of mind, that when they're ready to find their own truth and recognize the things they've done, that they have a framework to work off of.
So you guys were also talking about this, the great 7 lessons from how veterans and others conquer major life challenges. Is that part of the framework that you are mentioning? And maybe you can share what that is to give some ideas, because it doesn't just affect veterans; it affects everyone.
That's somewhat ancillary. I think that the major framework is the hero's journey we work off, and then we put Heracles circles of concern in there. But Alex, that is some of the ancillary work that we've done is pulling more lessons out for folks that, once you get past that, refining purpose and identity, now we can start doing the lessons learned.
Let me,
And
if I can,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
let me go
No, that's
back
okay.
half a step. Um, every few months in working on our book, which took more than 5 years, we would send out drafts and get comments from folks. And that was very valuable. And one of the comments towards the end of the process was from a friend and teammate of Rob's who said, "Guys, this is a great book, but what is the matter with you that you do not cover spouses?" So we redid the book because of that. And it took months and tons more interviews and research. And we wrote a new chapter on the transition of the spouse and the family. And the
And the
spouse,
spouse carries everything.
yes, and beyond that, undergoes an entirely parallel transition.
Yeah.
And it's as dislocating, as challenging, as rewarding.
Hmm.
We haven't spoken about the joy love component yet, but we should spend 5 minutes on that before this is over, because this
Okay.
is this is not all about clouds and darkness. This is about
Right.
joy and love.
Well, and let me share something real quick before you jump into that, because I think that's what part of this process is like, once we accept ourselves as humans and accept the foibles and the, of course we behave the way we do because of the things that we went through, type of thing. There's another side of this, of our humanity, which is joy and love and fun, and being able to get together with people and just, I mean, we've got little kids inside of us. I don't think that ever changes. And being able to recognize that we have an opportunity every day to jump back into that, to help with the healing process, even. Might as well just bring that out. We could use some joy and love. Go ahead.
Um, I mean, that is part of healing and redemption, and we can talk about it. To answer your question on the lessons learned, so we began to give talks, and we give talks, and we do consulting and coaching. That's part of the hero's journey business.
Hmm.
Um, and for the Dallas Brain Health Center, we proposed and have before them, as inspired by other folks, including the former psychologist for naval special warfare, a discussion, a presentation on the lessons learned from veterans that are applicable to everyone about life challenges. And we kind of distilled it down, um, and and so I'll throw out a couple. And this was before Claude and Chat GPT, so maybe we could have done it a lot quicker today. You have to become adaptable on your new terrain. You should not assume that the new terrain of civilian life is somehow less challenging. In fact, combat veterans who are friends of ours have said, I could be in the military. I could go do my missions. In civilian life, there's things that just escape me, and it's very difficult to make that transition. But adaptability is the first feature of people that are successful in major life obstacles and transitions. Number two, seek health and be devoted to your own healing. It takes intention and a lot of work. It doesn't happen on its own. You treat this life transition as something to be mastered, that can be mastered, as an exercise, as a discipline, as a skill, then seek excellence in that mastery. Learn lessons from those around you, your own mistakes, your own successes. refinding purpose is at the heart of this. And it happens in stages over a long, long time. But being able to hang on to a purpose when it is a very tough day makes all the difference in the world. Inevitably, serving others is a component of great fulfillment. And in his remarkable speech and book on Make Your Bed, Admiral McRaven said, "Never pass up an opportunity to lift up those around you," and that rings in our ears. Um, I think that being able to have close relationships with family and friends, and for those that believe in this kind of thing, having a spiritual component to this path is inevitable. And I think the last one is something that Rob really brought great clarity about, which is the power of choice, big and small.
Yep.
So when we abstract from these tremendous stories, these mythic stories of heroes in our presence, seeing these things became vivid and very helpful.
Yeah, you're speaking my story because mine's been over 35 years of doing everything that you just said and getting to the point, and that's actually the purpose of this podcast. It's like, if I can work through all of that stuff, I don't have another word for it yet. All of that stuff that I've worked through, um, the traumas and all the rest of it. If I can do that and come out on the other side and be of service, I want to show that other people can do that. And that's why you're here. That's why everybody I interview comes on here, because I know what it looks like on the other side of it. And I know the difference in who I was before and the struggles I went through and the pain and the depression and the isolation and the this and all of it. I've been there. I get it. So when I hear these stories, I get excited because other people get to hear your story and find themselves in you. And I feel like that's the hero's journey. So can you talk about, because not everybody really understands what the hero's journey is. I do, but um, can you explain what that is? And then maybe even throw in a piece of it, because something's hitting me that maybe there's a different way of saying it from a warrior's perspective as the hero and a civilian's perspective as the hero, because we're all heroes.
Yeah, I think so. Joseph Campbell's, just kind of the overarching, Joseph Campbell's, 1940s psychology, the hero with 1,000 faces. Joseph Campbell spent his career and his entire life, more or less, looking at all these different cultures and all these stories,
Hmm.
from Gilgamesh to Homer's Odysseus, Odyssey, to every great tale that we've ever heard, and he distilled it down to a framework. The adventurer or the hero has this call to adventure that he's going to go off, and there's self-doubt, and somewhere we find this mentor. And you can picture this as in the military, like, okay, is that the recruiter? Is that a friend, a family? And finally we have that enough courage to cross from the known universe to the unknown. For somewhere this journey, we go to this unknown universe, and whether it's going through boot camp or training, followed on by more training deployments in that cycle itself. For the normal person, they'll have some sort of encounter along the way in this journey. And at the very bottom is that life and death experience. It's the crucible that's supposed to change the hero forever. But we're supposed to come past this, and we're supposed to have this recognition of gifts or rewards. Military could be pride. It could be something, I mean, distill it down to, the $1.35 ribbon you wear on your uniform. It's something of recognition. And then we're supposed to go through atonement. And then we're supposed to keep coming up the backside of this hero's journey of this unknown universe. And we're supposed to get to what the gods call the elixir, the gift of the gods, this, new version of self or something. And then we cross that threshold again back to this known universe, and we're supposed to come back having complete this journey. But for veterans who, through that life and death situation, it's physical injury, moral injury, it's combat. I think we can all come back and recognize pride. We can all come back and recognize the tragedy, the sacrifice. We may have some atonement. We can't physically, we'll continue on the path and we'll get out of service. It's one way or another, we're going to get out, either retire, we're going to opt out, or they're going to force us out. So physically we'll go through that. We're stuck in the unknown universe because we can't get past these things. And we can't recognize these gifts. We can't recognize our service as honorable, noble. We can't do that because we can't heal ourselves yet. We can't come to terms with PTSD, TBI. And that's where we get stuck. And that's where it's so important to have a mentor to guide us through that back half, to cross that threshold and find truth with ourselves, to refinding purpose and refining identity. So that from a military perspective, and the beautiful thing about that is as you complete this journey, veterans, you can live this journey again because you're going to have another life after the military because we do this at such a young age. So that's really the power of the hero's journey from the veteran side. But I'll let Alex speak to it, I think in broader terms for the civilian side.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this real quick, though, because this is what makes sense to me when you say that. It's like the hero's journey it's repetitive. It goes through our whole lives anyway. It's
Yes.
not, it's not just as a veteran or as a soldier and then coming into this new piece, into this new piece, into this new piece. I can't tell you how many, if you start going into the ego stuff or whatever, we die every night. We wake up every morning, and we move into a different space every single day. So we're always given this opportunity to be in this hero's journey.
There's truth in that. When we talk about hero's journey, we mean something quite specific.
Okay.
We mean, and I think this is where the expression has been generalized a bit in how people talk about it. We mean something quite specific. And Rob pointed out that it originated in this framework that Campbell made popular about there being a pattern of the epic stories of all time, ancient and modern, East and West. Doesn't matter. They all follow this pattern. It's seeking adventure. It's leaving the known place. It is that experience of growth and loss and suffering and tremendously positive things. It is coming home, coming back. You're different. You never walk through the same stream twice. You have now the biggest challenge of all, which is not seen or understood. And that is how, if you have an opportunity to combine these parts of your life, the epic warrior to whom the gods have given you this magic potion elixir. If you want to call it a flow moment, you can do that. And you've got your mundane daily life. Mundane is not a negative word. It's your daily life. You putting food on the table, taking the trash out, whatever it is. How do you combine these things? In Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus is confronted with this. And if you read the end chapters with this lens in mind, you see the struggle of that man having to combine these parts of his life. That is true for every warrior. It's true for every person. And General McChrystal immediately saw this and gave us his version, a very moving way. The point of this is that is what we mean by the hero's journey. And for veterans and spouses, the ultimate challenge is how do you combine these parts of your lives so that you lift up and can live here? How do you use that to lift up your family, those around you? How do you serve your country in this new way? It's the combining of these things that makes one accomplish this ultimate objective.
You were also talking about these paths. For some people, it's like a path of spiritual warfare, and maybe this combines with what we just talked about, the daily choices that we make. Can you get into that a little bit more? What that looks like in our daily choices of going through this hero's journey or the spiritual warfare of ourselves? Or
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex. If you
go
want to
ahead, go.
yeah,
No, I'm happy if you want to.
Yeah, go for it.
Spiritual warfare sounds like a big fancy title. It is the most simple of choices we make. Many of them we're not conscious of. And it has to do with choosing the light versus being comfortable staying in the dark. These are choices we make, sometimes 0, sometimes a dozen times a day. And it's a question of whether or not you are seeking your best self or staying comfortable. Now, moving out of your comfort zone is not the goal of everything. It's what you have to do sometimes. These are choices that are about you're aligning yourself with what it is you're meant to be and do when you're here. And in that way, that serves something higher than yourself. And if you believe in awakenings of the soul and that spiritual journey, this is an essential element to it. An essential element of that has to be that we all have dragons in our path that are our demons. You don't have to believe in ghosts to understand my point. We all face dragons of different kinds. Am I worthy? How do I accept this gift? How do I show love and vulnerability at the same time? How do I sit and listen to the most painful things possible, but stay emotionally present and hold that space for this person? These are challenges, and everyone has their own. But make no mistake, these are dragons in our path. And in a way that I hope comes off the right way, the dragon's the same, but the dragon wears a different dress every day, and the dragon's in front of you. And, and the dragon's in front of you, and it's up to you about what you want to do about it.
So you can either slay it or make friends with it in the dress.
Wow.
I said it. You don't have to. I said it. It's okay. Rob, you want to add something to that?
Alex's words are pretty eloquent. I don't know if I can top that from the this spiritual warrior or anything. I'm going to channel a good friend of mine, Alex and mine, who's retired commander out of the SEAL teams, and he was over at Development Group, and he was the troop commander. He left, and then Operation Extortion happened right after that. But the helicopter went down, and we lost so many lives. He had to go through radical forgiveness. So I say that message to all the other veterans out there, like, just, you have to sometimes have radical forgiveness because you have been through so much. And there's so much in the closet or the past. It's like, that doesn't make you a bad person, because, or it's the old saying, like, if everybody threw their problems in the circle or in the middle, you might not see that yours are so bad. You might just want to take yours back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's dealing with something. Everybody's dealing with trauma. You don't get to be an adult without experiencing some sort of trauma along the way.
Right. Right.
So it's having radical forgiveness, and it's having the warrior ethos to keep pushing on.
Mm. Well, for you, could you, like, I actually, there's a book written called Radical Forgiveness, and forgiveness is hard enough for people. Just most people won't forgive other people, but the part where you get to forgive yourself is one of the most powerful things that I've ever experienced. Can you kind of explain it a little bit more, what radical forgiveness is?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that, because I have not read that book, but I think radical forgiveness is, I go back to this, the balance, the truth, the peace of all these things, that we are fallible. No matter what we do in our life, we will make mistakes and we will be fallible. We absolutely will. We cannot go through life perfect or unscathed. And the radical forgiveness piece is realizing that we have this finite amount of time to have happiness. So and I go back to balance. If we can't have radical forgiveness and forgive us for these selves, we're not going to be able to experience life at its fullest and have the happiness that's in front of us.
You nailed it. That was good. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go into the questions that I ask all my guests. And I'd like the first question I'm going to ask you and the last question I'm going to ask you, you can elaborate into things that you wanted to share that maybe we didn't touch on yet. Just however it comes out. But the first question I have is, what is one thing you would offer someone who knows something isn't right in their life, especially as a veteran, and doesn't know what to do next?
I go back to mentorship, but sometimes I say that so easily because I've been through this. I would ask them to go back and think of everything that they've been through to where they are today. Every every defeat, every victory, promotion, award, everything they did in the military. And that service and being in the service of others and being answering the why of being in the service of the Constitution, remember that.
Thank you. Alex, can you give me your civilian version of that, please?
Civilian military is the same. A mentor is critical. I would say recognizing that and raising your hand or reaching out for help, even if the help is just talking with a buddy, is the crucial, most important step.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right. Alex, you get to go first on this one. How would you define awakening?
I would define it by saying it's not definable. It is, it is, it is an opening
Mm,
that you receive through the grace of the gods that allows you to see things without blame, without either to yourself or others, while taking responsibility, but really seeing a bigger sense of what's possible for you in your life. So it was like an opening where I can respond very differently about this. I can see my life path so much bigger because of this. It is an enormous gift. It's an opening that allows you to see things that seemed impossible. So the impossible can become the inevitable.
I like that the impossible can become the inevitable. That's very powerful. Thank you, Rob.
And Alex, very eloquent with those words. I think awakening is crossing the threshold of fear and embracing it and accepting it. Because once you do that, you will open up all things in front of you.
And yes, and what's interesting when you say that and what hits me is that all veterans, all soldiers do that, whether they're in or out of
Yes.
the military. So
Oh,
we're always awakening, right?
we are. We're always being
Yeah.
tested. We're always being put into a new situation, whether it's to you know down regulating a peptide P's or whatever it is, the up regulation of the mind, to stress inoculation, whatever it is. They're
Yeah.
always doing something to us.
Always,
Yes,
always. They'll find something to do even when they're bored,
of
anyway.
course. Yeah.
Okay, Rob, we're gonna start with you on this one. What do you believe soul divinity is?
Soul divinity, and I probably my honest response here is, because of the things that I've seen, I've always had a problem with humanity,
Mm,
with some of the things that I've seen. So I would not say I'm the most divine person, but soul divinity, I think would maybe be releasing everything over to the higher power, and
okay,
that's still a journey I'm on, to be honest.
that's okay. We're all on the journey. Welcome. Welcome home.
Yes,
Okay,
right.
Alex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I'm not sure. The answer or the response I have is if you believe in this stuff, every one of us has higher power, the universe, God, gods inside of you.
Yes. Okay.
And if you can be hit with grace once in a while to experience that
Mhm.
when you're walking in the street or on a hike and the wind hits you and it causes you to stop and think about that for just 10 seconds, that is a touching of that.
Yes. Yeah. I've learned the hard way that we never get the full experience of any of this stuff. That it's always like little touchings of it. And then it little by little hopefully wakes us up to, oh, look what else is out there type of thing. That's what I've learned throughout my process. But how can people get in touch with you? It's open for either one of you because same thing.
Uh, yeah, probably through the website, and it's heroes-journey.net would probably be
Okay.
the easiest way to get a hold of us through
And
the
they
web.
can get your book off of that as well, or
Yes, probably Amazon would probably be the best way to do that, or Barnes and Noble. I know brick and mortar does carry some of these,
okay.
but to actually reach out to us, probably through the website.
Do either one of you have the book near you so you can show it to us, or
I do.
you do? There it is. Lift it up a little bit. There you go.
And because
Nice.
of
Okay.
Alex, we just won a gold medal because of through Axiom Book Awards in the career department because of Alex.
Wow, because of Alex. Thank you, Alex.
He submitted our book and we got a gold medal.
Well, you and I both wrote the book. Yeah, I mean, so I always preface this by saying I hope it doesn't come off the wrong way, but I think we so believe in the work of the book and how the book has helped people from feedback to us.
Hmm.
It has been a bestseller. It has been, we won this great award. We think this book can change lives and we hope it can save some lives, whether that's veteran, spouse, military child, or someone that has nothing to do with this. And so that is why these nice bits of feedback are heartwarming.
Thank you for what you do. I think
Thanks
this
for
is
having us.
fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. We're not done yet, though. You ready? Is, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I guess because we wrote this book for folks going through some sort of life-changing moment or trauma. I love to kind of end on Churchill. If you're going through hell, keep going.
Mm,
There are a lot brighter days.
yeah. The universe, in the last 4 years, I was in my darkest moments. And every time I asked for help, give me some feedback, universe, whatever.
Yeah.
It kept saying, keep going.
Yep.
So maybe the universe pulled it from Churchill.
He was a
Who
wise man.
knows?
Maybe. Who knows?
Alex, what would you like to share?
It's the same point. In your darkest moments, you have a chance for healing and growing and finding a way through it. So it is darkest before dawn for a reason.
Thank you. That's wow. Okay. I'm hold on a minute. Okay. Rob, Alex, I'm grateful you both brought this into the space today. You reminded us that coming home isn't about returning to who you were. It's about meeting who you've become and finding a way to live from there with truth and purpose. And through the influence of Edward Tick's work, we're invited to see this differently, that what many call PTSD may be something deeper, a soul wound, what has long been known as soldier's heart, and something our world is still learning how to truly honor. To our audience, may this conversation stay with you, and for those who have carried what most will never see, may it offer a deeper sense of being understood. Thank you for being here with us on
Thank you.
Awakening Soul Divinity.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Click on one of the videos below to keep going on your healing journey. And don't forget to subscribe.